The wind howled through the ancient pines of the Siberian taiga, carrying with it the scent of snow and something else, something that made Maya-chan's camera shake in her frozen hands. She had been tracking the elusive Amur leopard for 3 days, following paw prints that seemed impossibly large, even for the world's rarest big cat. The prints led her deeper into the wilderness than any of her previous expeditions, past the abandoned research station where Dr. Volkov's team had vanished. 3 weeks ago, Maya adjusted her telephoto lens, her breath forming crystalline clouds in the -30 air. 20 years of wildlife photography had taught her patience, but something felt different here. The forest was too quiet, as if every living thing had fled. Even the hardy Siberian jays that usually chattered from the treetops had gone silent. Through her viewfinder, she spotted movement, a shadow, sliding between the massive trunks of 200-year-old larches. Her heart hammered as she focused, expecting to see the golden coat and distinctive rosettes of the leopard she'd traveled 6,000 miles to photograph. Instead, something emerged that defied every law of nature she understood. The creature stood, 8 feet tall on powerful hind legs, its body covered in dark, almost metallic fur that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Muscular arms ended in claws that could have belonged to a prehistoric cave bear, while its head combined the angular features of a wolf with the calculating intelligence of a primate. But it was the eyes that stopped Maya's breath-amber orbs, that held an ancient wisdom, scanning the forest with the methodical precision of a hunter who had never known failure. Maya's finger found the shutter button just as the creature's head snapped toward her position. She had photographed charging grizzlies, territorial tigers, and cornered wolverines, but nothing had prepared her for the raw power radiating from this impossible being. It moved with fluid grace toward her hiding spot, each step deliberate. And silent despite its massive size, the camera's autofocus whirred softly as Maya fought the urge to flee. This was the shot of a lifetime proof of a species that shouldn't exist. The creature emerged from the tree line, now only 30 feet away, close enough for her to see the intelligence burning in those amber eyes. She raised the camera, centering. The beast in her frame. Time stopped. Through the viewfinder, their eyes met. The creature froze mid-step, its head tilting with an almost human gesture of curiosity. Maya felt something she'd never experienced in 2 decades of wildlife encounters. Fear, but recognition. As if the creature was looking not at her, but into her, reading something written in her soul. For 10 heartbeats, they remained locked in this strange communion. Then, impossibly, the great predator took a slow step backward, then another. Its fierce expression softened, replaced by something that looked almost like reverence. Without breaking eye contact, it continued retreating until the forest swallowed it whole. Maya lowered her camera with trembling hands, scrolling through the images on her LCD screen. Each photo was perfect, crystal clear, properly exposed, undeniably real. But more importantly, she had captured that moment of connection, the exact instant when apex predator recognized something in her that stayed its killing instinct. She thought of Dr. Volkov's missing research team and wondered, had they looked into those same amber eyes? And if so, what had the creature seen in theirs? Asterisk, the abandoned research station crouched in the clearing like a wounded animal, its metal walls bearing claw marks that hadn't been there in the satellite photos from 4 weeks ago. Maya approached, carefully, her camera ready, but her mind still reeling from the encounter. The creature's retreat had been deliberate, almost ceremonial, nothing like the territorial displays she'd witnessed from other apex predators. Inside the station, she found Dr. Volkov's equipment scattered, but not destroyed. Personal effects remained untouched: wallets, jewelry, expensive electronics that any human scavenger would have taken. But the research materials told a different story. Field notes were shredded with surgical precision, and hard drives had been systematically destroyed. Someone or something had specifically targeted their scientific data. Maya's satellite phone buzzed with an incoming message from her editor. In New York, local authorities found bodies. 3 researchers sending coordinates. The coordinates led her 2 miles north to a ravine where the bodies lay arranged in a precise triangle. Maya had documented enough predator kills to recognize the signs, but this was unlike anything she'd seen. The victims showed no signs of struggle, no defensive wounds. Each had died from a single precise strike to the neck, clinical, almost surgical. But it was the 4th member of the team, Dr. Sarah Martinez, who presented the real mystery. Maya found her camp intact, journal still open to the final entry. The indigenous elders were right. It can see us. Really see us. God help me. I think it knows what we've done. Through her camera's telephoto lens, Maya studied the tree line. The creature was there. She was certain. Watching. Waiting. She scrolled through Dr. Martinez's research photos on the abandoned laptop images of ancient cave paintings from around the world. Lascaux, Altamira, Chauvet. All showed the same impossible scene. A towering figure facing a human, their eyes connected by flowing lines that seemed to represent some form of communication or judgment. Rustling in the underbrush made Maya spin around. An elderly man emerged from the forest, moving with the silent confidence of someone who belonged here. His weathered face bore the distinctive features of the indigenous Even people, and his dark eyes held the same ancient quality she'd seen in the creature's gaze. "You are the photographer," he said in accented English. "The one who looked into the Watcher's eyes and lived." "The Watcher?" Maya lowered her camera. "You know what that thing is?" The elder, who introduced himself as Dmitri, settled onto a fallen log as if he had all the time in the world. "My people have stories older than your civilization. We called them the Watcher's guardians, placed by the spirits to maintain balance. They can see what lies in a person's heart, their true nature." Maya pulled up the photos on her camera, showing them to Dmitri. His expression grew grave as he examined each image. "The missing researchers," she pressed. "What did it see in them?" Dmitri's silence stretched long enough for Maya to wonder if he'd answer. Finally he spoke. "Dr. Volkov took bribes from logging companies, providing false environmental reports that allowed them to clear-cut protected forests. The others, they each carried guilt that ran deeper than the permafrost. But you..." He studied Maya with those penetrating eyes. "The Watcher saw something different in you. A soul that truly loves the wild places." As if summoned by their conversation, the creature emerged from the forest. But this time, Maya felt no fear. The Watcher approached to within 20 feet before settling into a crouch, its amber eyes fixed on her with what she could only describe as patient expectation. "It's waiting for something," Maya whispered. Dmitri nodded grimly. "Others are coming. Those who would cage it, study it, exploit it. The Watcher has chosen you to witness what happens when nature finally fights back." Asterisk. The military helicopters arrived at dawn, their rotors shattering the pristine silence of the taiga. Maya watched from her hidden position as soldiers in Arctic camouflage deployed with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Leading them was a woman in civilian clothes, Dr. Elena Kozlov, whose reputation for acquiring rare specimens for government research was legendary among wildlife photographers. "Satellite thermal imaging confirms a large bipedal entity in this sector," Kozlov barked into her radio. "Tranquilizer protocols only. The specimen must be taken alive." Maya's blood ran cold. These weren't scientists. They were collectors. The Watcher had become prey. Through her telephoto lens, she watched the soldiers spread out in a classic containment formation. They moved with practiced precision, but Maya could see what they couldn't the way the forest itself seemed to be. Watching them, ravens gathered in unusual numbers. Squirrels chattered warnings from the treetops. Even the wind seemed to shift direction, carrying the soldiers' scent deeper into the wilderness. The first sign of the Watcher's presence came 3 hours later. Maya heard the screams through her radio scanner emergency frequencies crackling, with panicked voices. A soldier's voice, high with terror. Contact lost with Team Alpha. Something took Henderson. Just lifted him into the trees. We never saw it coming. **** Maya grabbed her camera and moved toward the chaos. She found the scene of the first encounter drag marks leading into dense underbrush. A tranquilizer gun broken cleanly in half, and claw marks scored deep into the trunk of a massive pine. But no blood. The Watcher was being selective. Her satellite phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check Henderson's military record. D. Dimitri. Somehow the Elder had gained access to military communications. Maya's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard, accessing press databases she'd used for investigative stories. What she found made her stomach turn. ***. Sergeant Henderson had been court-martialed twice for excessive force, both times involving environmental protesters. The second incident had resulted in the death of a young activist named Maria Santos, though charges were mysteriously dropped. The official report had been sealed, but Maya's contacts in investigative journalism ran deep. As she read, the forest erupted in fresh chaos. 2 more soldiers had vanished, taken with the same surgical precision. Each disappearance followed the same pattern: a brief, one-sided struggle, then silence. The remaining troops were pulling back to a defensive perimeter, their confident advance transformed into panicked retreat. Dr. Kozlov's voice crackled over the radio. Bring up the sonic disruptors. If we can't tranquilize it, we'll disorient it into submission. Maya's heart pounded as she watched soldiers wheel out devices that looked like satellite dishes mounted on tripods. She'd seen similar equipment used to disperse whale pods from shipping lanes, technology that could cause permanent hearing damage or worse. The Watcher emerged from the tree line just as the first disruptor activated. The creature staggered, its hands clutching its head as the ultrasonic waves pounded its sensitive hearing. For a moment, Maya thought the military had won. Then the Watcher looked directly at her, even at a distance of 200 yards. Even through the viewfinder of her camera, Maya felt the full force of that amber gaze. But now she understood what she was seeing. The creature wasn't just an animal defending its territory. It was a judge, systematically removing those who had transgressed against the natural world. The Watcher's expression shifted, and Maya realized it was asking her a question. In that moment of connection, she understood what it needed to know. Would she help it escape this mechanical torture, or would she stand by while humanity's guilt was silenced forever? Maya made her choice. She raised her camera and began documenting everything: the sonic weapons, the military formation, the GPS coordinates of their position. Then she uploaded the images to every major news outlet and environmental organization she could reach. Within minutes, her phone exploded with calls from journalists, activists, and government officials. The secret operation had just become very public. The Watcher seemed to sense the shift in the balance of power. It straightened despite the sonic assault, and Maya could swear she saw something like gratitude flicker across its ancient features before it melted back into the forest, leaving the soldiers to face questions they weren't prepared to answer. The media storm that followed Maya's leaked photographs transformed the remote Siberian wilderness into a battleground of competing interests. Environmental activists arrived. Alongside government officials, journalists camped next to military contractors, and indigenous rights advocates faced off against corporate representatives. The forest that had known only silence for centuries now hummed with satellite uplinks and generator-powered news stations. Maya found herself at the center of the chaos, her photos sparking a global debate about environmental justice and humanity's relationship with nature. But while the world argued, the Watcher continued its work. The fourth victim was found at dawn. Dr. Richard Brennan, a corporate consultant who had been part of the military operation. Maya's investigation revealed his connection to the defunct Apex Mining Corporation, which had illegally dumped mercury into pristine watersheds across 3 continents before declaring bankruptcy to avoid cleanup costs. Like the others, Brennan showed no signs of struggle, just the single, precise wound that had become the Watcher's signature. "It's escalating," Dmitri observed as they examined the scene. The Elder had become Maya's unofficial guide, sharing knowledge that spanned generations of indigenous wisdom. The Watcher grows bolder because it senses time running short. Maya framed the scene through her viewfinder, documenting everything with the methodical precision that had made her career. Time running short for what? For balance to be restored. Dmitri replied, "My grandmother's stories speak of a time when the Asajone Watchers will emerge from their hidden places to settle accounts with those who have forgotten their place in the natural order." The answer came sooner than Maya expected. Her satellite phone rang with a call from Dr. Sarah Martinez, the researcher who had supposedly vanished with the rest of Volkov's team. "Maya, thank God you're alive," Sarah's voice crackled through the static. "I've been hiding in the old mining camp, documenting everything. You need to see what I found." The abandoned copper mine lay 15 miles north of the research station, its rusted machinery half buried in decades of snow and undergrowth. Maya found Sarah in the mine's main office, surrounded by laptops displaying satellite imagery, geological surveys, and corporate communications spanning decades. "I wasn't taken by the creature," Sarah explained, her eyes hollow with exhaustion and fear. "I ran when I realized what was happening, what we had all done." She pulled up a series of documents on her screen. "Maya, we weren't just studying the Amur leopard. We were conducting preliminary surveys for a new mining operation. Rare earth elements worth billions of dollars, buried beneath the last pristine habitat of the world's most endangered big cat." Maya's stomach lurched as she absorbed the implications. The research team was a front? Worse than that, we knew about the Watcher. The indigenous reports, the cave paintings, the historical accounts, they were all in our preliminary studies. We came here knowing we might encounter something extraordinary, and we planned to exploit it anyway. Sarah's laptop displayed corporate emails detailing the planned exploitation. Capture the creature, study its unique adaptations, then use the media attention to distract from the environmental destruction that would follow. The Amur leopard's habitat would be strip-mined, but the world would be focused on the amazing discovery of a new species. "That's why it killed the others," Maya whispered. "They came here to destroy its home." Through the mine office's grimy windows, Maya spotted movement in the tree line. The Watcher stood motionless among the pines, its amber eyes fixed on the building. For the first time since their initial encounter, Maya felt the weight of its judgment settling on her shoulders. Sarah noticed her gaze and followed it to the window. When she saw the creature, she collapsed into a chair, her face pale with terror and guilt. "It's been watching me for days," she whispered, waiting. "I think it wants me to tell someone what we did before." She couldn't finish the sentence. Maya raised her camera, but not to photograph the Watcher. Instead, she turned the lens on Sarah, recording her confession, documenting the truth behind the scientific expedition. The creature remained motionless until Maya lowered the camera and nodded toward the forest. Only then did the Watcher approach. It moved with deliberate slowness, each step measured and purposeful. When it reached the office window, it placed one massive hand against the glass, leaving a print that would outlast the building itself. Sarah met the creature's gaze for perhaps 10 seconds before her courage failed. She looked away, trembling. The watcher's expression remained impassive as it turned and walked back into the forest. Its judgment passed, but its sentence deferred. "Why didn't it kill me?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. Maya understood. "Because you chose to confess, to make things right." She looked at her camera, filled with evidence that would expose the entire conspiracy. "The question is, what are we going to do with the truth?" The final confrontation came at sunset, when the taiga burned gold and crimson under the Arctic sky. Maya stood at the edge of the forest clearing where everything had begun, her camera ready for what she knew would be her last photographs of the watcher. Behind her, the sounds of approaching helicopters grew louder, not the military this time, but media crews and environmental activists drawn by her leaked evidence of the mining conspiracy. The story had exploded across global networks. Sarah's recorded confession, combined with Maya's photographs and the documented corporate communications, had triggered international outrage. The Russian government faced pressure to declare the region a protected sanctuary, while Apex Mining's hidden investors scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. But Maya knew the Watcher's story was far from over. The creature emerged from the tree line as the first helicopters settled into the clearing. Through her telephoto lens, Maya watched its reaction to the approaching crowd. Scientists, journalists, activists, and government officials all converging on this remote wilderness with their own agendas. "The moment of truth," Dmitri said, appearing beside her with his characteristic silence. The elder's weathered face reflected the same mixture of hope and apprehension that Maya felt. Dr. Elena Kozlov stepped from the lead helicopter, flanked by a new team of specialists. But these weren't military contractors. Maya recognized several faces from international conservation organizations. The exposure had forced a change in tactics, though Maya doubted the underlying motives had shifted. "Dr. Chun," Kozlov called out as she approached. "Your photographs have created quite a stir. We're here to establish a proper research protocol: humane observation, minimal intervention, maximum protection for the species." Maya kept her camera trained on the Watcher, who had moved closer to the clearing's edge. The creature's amber eyes swept across the assembled crowd, and Maya could see it cataloging each person with that same penetrating intensity she'd experienced during their first encounter. "What makes you think it wants to be studied?" Maya asked, not lowering her camera. "Every species deserves protection," Kozlov replied, though her tone suggested she was reciting a prepared statement. "This creature represents an entirely new branch of evolution. The scientific knowledge we could gain." The Watcher's roar cut through her words like a blade through silk. The sound contained multitudes, the fury of a storm, the grief of a dying forest, the judgment of millennia. Every person in the clearing froze, their scientific equipment and media cameras suddenly seeming inadequate in the face of such primal power. But the roar wasn't directed at them. Through her viewfinder, Maya watched the Watcher's gaze fix on something beyond the crowd. Following its line of sight, she spotted them, 3 figures in corporate attire, making their way through the forest, flanked by private security contractors. Her research had identified them, the surviving board members of Apex Mining, come to personally oversee the capture of the creature that had exposed their conspiracy. Even with their company in ruins and their reputations destroyed, they couldn't resist the opportunity to possess something this valuable. Watcher began to move. Maya had witnessed the creature's hunts before, but this was different. No stealth, no surgical precision, just inexorable purpose as it closed the distance between itself and its final targets. The corporate executive security team raised their weapons, but Maya could see the futility in their stance. This wasn't a battle they could win, stop. Maya shouted, surprising herself as much as everyone else. She stepped between the watcher and its prey, her camera the only barrier between predator and judgment. The creature halted, its amber eyes boring into hers with an intensity that made her previous encounters seem casual. In that gaze, Maya saw the accumulated weight of every forest cleared, every species driven to extinction, every pristine wilderness sacrificed for profit. The Watcher wasn't just hunting these three men, it was executing sentence on behalf of the entire natural world. "I know what they've done," Maya said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "The world knows now. Let justice take its course through human systems." The Watcher tilted its head, considering. Behind Maya, she could hear the executives and their guards retreating, their footsteps stumbling through the underbrush. The creature could easily pursue them, but it remained focused on her. Maya raised her camera one final time, capturing the moment when apex predator chose to trust human justice over natural vengeance. The Watcher's expression softened, returning to the almost reverent look she'd seen during their first encounter. Then, with a grace that defied its massive size, the creature stepped backward into the forest, not retreating, withdrawing, choosing to remain hidden while humanity decided whether it deserved to share the world with such ancient wisdom. As the last light faded from the sky, Maya lowered her camera and checked the final image. The Watcher stood poised between light and shadow, between judgment and mercy, between the wild world and the civilized one. "Did we pass the test?" she asked Dmitri. The elder smiled for the first time since she'd met him. "The test isn't over. It's just beginning." But today, for the first time in generations, the Watcher chose to believe that humans might still remember their place in the natural order. Maya looked at her camera, filled with images that would change how the world understood its relationship with nature. The Watcher had shown her that some things were worth protecting, even if it meant trusting the very species that had caused so much destruction. In the distance, sirens wailed as law enforcement moved to arrest the fleeing executives. The mining operation was finished, the habitat was safe, and somewhere in the vast Siberian wilderness, an ancient guardian continued its eternal watch. Maya's story was complete, but the Watcher's vigil would continue, patient, discerning, and always ready to look into the human soul and judge what it found there. Asterisk?